Good evening, my dear friends. I welcome you all to the Hindu and the Businessline editorial analysis on August 26, 2022. I am touching upon firstly the editorial article from the Businessline. The title of the article is All Property is Not Theft. The Supreme Court recently in the Ganapati Dealcom Private Limited case has struck as unconstitutional the sections 3 subsection 2 and section 5 of the Benami Transactions Prohibition Act 1988. The law, the Benami Law 1988, was later on amended by the Act of 2016 to give criminal nature in the disguise of civil law to the 1988 Benami Law. What is meant by Benami transaction? Benami in Hindi means without a name. Section 2 of the Act defines Benami transaction as a transaction when, for example, B occupies a property which is purchased by A in the name of B. So the money is being provided by A, but B holds the property. And it is for the direct or indirect benefits of Mr. A. This is a Benami transaction. And it is defined by Section 2. Section 3, subsection 2 of the 1988 Act wanted to punish those who had held a Benami transaction for 3 years in rigorous imprisonment. And Section 5 of the erstwhile 1988 Benami law wanted to confiscate or forfeit the property which is involved in the Benami law. Supreme Court has held that the Section 3, 2 and Section 5 of the erstwhile 1988 law is unconstitutional because it violates Article 20 of the Indian Constitution. Article 20 of the Indian Constitution states that you cannot give teeth to a law or you cannot enforce a law which was not in existence before the amendment was passed, before the law was passed. Section 3.2 of the Act was having no teeth because the rules were not framed. Try to understand 1988 Act Section 3.2, that is 3 subsection 2 of the Benami law could not be enforced because there were no rules which were helping to enforce this act, enforce this section. And Section 5 was also having no rules. Benami law 1988 had no rules to aid in its enforcement. And 2016 amendment to the Benami law was made to give sanction by making subsequent rules to the Section 3 subsection 2 of the Benami law and Section 5 of the Benami law. However, the Supreme Court has termed that Section 5 of the present amended 2016 Amendment Act is half-baked as the rules are not clearly there for confiscating or forfeiting the property under the 2016 Amendment Act. Supreme Court was examining the law in view of the transactions carried out as Benami transactions between 1988 September and 2016 October. The Amendment Act 2016 came into force from November 1. Hence, the transactions between 1988 September 3 and October 2016, whatever Benami transactions were there, were tried to be penalized by bringing a law which is after this October 2016, that is with effect from November 1 2016. The new Benami Amendment Act was brought to give effect to the 1988 Act, which is against or violative of the Article 20 of the Constitution. This was the observation of the Supreme Court. However, the Supreme Court has stated that the prospective application of the law, that is, in from 2016 November 1 onwards, the prospective application of the law is in the hands of the government. That has to be checked. Then there was another lacuna in the previous 1988 law, which is that there was no mention of the presumption of mens rea, that is MENS REA, in the former law, that is section 3 subsection 2 of the 1988 law. Now, with the enactment of the 2016 law, the concept of mens rea has been brought in. That is, the criminal intent of committing such an act was brought in. Criminal intent of performing a Benami transaction was brought in with the 2016 amendment law. So, when Mr. Arun Jaitley, the finance minister, then brought in this law, this 2016 amendment to the 1988 law, he explained in the parliament that this was just a procedural law to give effect to the 1988 law. However, the Supreme Court has recently observed in its 96-page judgment of the Ganapati Dealcom Private Limited versus Union of India that this was a substantive law. What is the difference between procedural law and a substantive law? A procedural law is just giving effect to the main provisions of the act, which is the main substantive, that is, which is containing the main substance of the act, and the procedures are just giving the effect, that is, how to give effect to the main substance of the law. It is called procedural law. So 2016 amendment was brought in to give effect to the substantive provisions of the 1988 law, was what the explanation given in the parliament when 2016 amendment was brought in. Unfortunately, the present 2016 law treats every transaction which is indirect holding of one person as Benami transaction. The fiduciary transactions were also termed as Benami transaction in the present 2016 law. Therefore, the Supreme Court's judgment in the case of Ganapati Dealcom Private Limited just is a warning to the lawmakers that how to make law, how the apex court of the country views the law of the land and how it can be made. Then, moving on to the Hindu, the title of the editorial is In a Perilous State. What is this perilous state? There stalemate, in a perilous stalemate. There is a stalemate which is going on between Ukraine and Russia. The war has been there for last 6 months. Started in February 24, 2022. Now with the Ukraine Independence Day of August 24, 2022, it becomes 6 months. And The initial invasion of Russia was the Kiev and the Kharkiv, which was just resisted bravely by Ukraine, and the retreat of the forces of the Russians were seen in from the Kiev and Kharkiv. Then what Russia did was to expand its blast and attacks, the ground attacks all over Ukraine. It succeeded in reaching the Donbas and the eastern parts and the southern parts of Ukraine. However, the northern and the northeastern parts of Ukraine were rescued by the Ukrainian forces. Russia has now stopped the ground attacks. However, now and then attacks are still common in Ukraine. The Ukrainian Independence Day on August 24, 2022, an attack was carried on in a railway station. How Ukraine could invade, how Ukraine could prevent Russian onslaught was because of the Western influence, that is transatlantic community, that is which came together against Russia and which can be visible by Finland and Sweden expressing its interest to join the NATO. Now, what happens is that the Ukraine doesn't have any option to invade its past territories in the east, Donbas, and the eastern parts of Ukraine. Russia also doesn't have any goal, that is a long term goal. If it continues the war in the long term, what it goes to achieve is not clear to Russia. Already the economic sanctions are upon Russia. The West and the USA has passed economic sanctions against Russia. However, the Russian natural gas is needed in winter by the European countries. So the European countries are also wary of this continuation of the war. So what happens is that the stalemate has come. The stalemate has come and it is affecting almost all the economies of the world. What is now in store is that those who are closer to the Russian and the Ukrainian forces must make a ceasefire as soon as possible, because already we have seen that a person's daughter who is close aide to Russian President Vladimir Putin is also killed. The Crimean and Kansas provinces are in hold of Ukraine, and Ukraine is using Crimean and the Kansas provinces as the grounds for attacking the Russian forces. So the stalemate is going on, continuing, and the world is just looking with its fingers crossed what to do. The present stalemate has to end, and the close aids to Russian and Ukrainian forces must step in to force the war to end now, because a war is in nobody's interest. It only destroys the economy, the political will, the people's lives, and millions are just thrown out of their normal lives, and this will take many years to repair the consequences of the war. Friends, I hope you enjoyed both the discussions on the Benami law and the Russian Ukrainian stalemate. I will come tomorrow with some more analysis on such topics like this. Till then, bye bye, take care.